council chambers at 803 West Holland in the city of Alpine, Texas, for the purpose of considering the attached agenda. This notice is posted pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. Public notice: the use of cellular phones are prohibited in the city council chambers during meetings of the city council. Members of the audience will be provided an opportunity to address the council on any agenda item after determination of a quorum and approval of notice of the meeting. Remarks will be limited to a total of 3 minutes per person. Please write your name on this list. We may call you in order. And please speak into the microphone located at the podium and state your name and address. If you have a petition or other information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the city council, the city secretary. State law attorney prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda, but if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to set. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor and/or city council members may call a point of order to stop the personal attack. If an individual continues to personally attack an elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be barred. Call this meeting to order. We'll have the invocation by the Reverend Alan Christopherson.
Let's pray together. Father, I thank you for the day that you've given us. I thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to gather. Lord, even in the midst of city management, I pray a blessing on this meeting and this gathering. And Lord, for those that are involved, I pray that you will guide our minds, our thoughts, and even our actions, Lord, as we deal with the business of the city. We also come, Lord, with a heavy heart, with understanding Mark Scudder, and pray a blessing on him, his family, Lord, and I pray for peace and patience, even comfort and healing. We're grateful, Lord, for this time that you've given us. We love you, we praise you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. City Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Mayor, we do have a quorum, and the notice was posted at 11 a.m. November 13, 2019.
Okay. Public comments. Anybody? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on. Jamal? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jamar Prince. I live in Bastrop, Texas at 204 Waipahoe Drive. I'm here representing Texas Disposal Systems, and I just wanted to thank you guys for your partnership. In addition to that, I wanted to let you guys know if anything, if you need anything, I'm here. You can call me, you can text me. My phone never goes off. You can email me, so there's a variety of ways to contact me if you need anything. That's all I have for you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, presentations. We don't have any. Okay. Reports. I don't have a report. City attorney report.
Mayor and council, I've been working on the Lechudia project. I hand to each of you the development agreement. I've been negotiating with the attorney for the developer for Skyway Gardens. The previous city manager and previous city building inspector had given them a building permit to build the 49-unit apartment house out there, but they didn't require them to get a plat to come into the city or have the plat approval before the building permit was done. That's completely backwards with the way it's supposed to be done in cities. Further, they had issued the building permit without requiring them to comply with city ordinances and codes insofar as requiring that they comply with the building and water to city standards, sewer to city standards, pave the road that goes to the development, and also ensure that the road to their development dedicated to the public as a public right of way. So therefore, I've been negotiating with them, and they've agreed to these conditions, that the city will provide them with water, but they have to build their water tap to the city water tap at their expense. And they're going to put water storage tanks and a pump on their side to make sure that they have adequate pressure without having to rely on city water pressure. The sewer, they're going to also bring their sewer line to the city line without cost to the city. And they're going to provide and maintain their pumping station on the property. The previous city manager offered to pay for them to get for the city to pay for the gas service to go to their property. This contract says that they're going to put the gas service at their cost to the city gas main. The roads, most importantly, they've agreed to dedicate a 30-foot right-of-way to the public and pave Lechuguilla Road according to city paving standards, which have been provided to them. And all of this will be done by and approved by city inspections. And so they're not going to be able to continue work on the construction of it until the plat is submitted to the council for approval, and I anticipate that plat being submitted to the council at the next council meeting. So going forward, I'm going to make sure that other developments in Alpine, if we want developments, we want Alpine to grow, we want them to follow the rules, we want them to do it right, not make the rest of the citizens pay for some development. Any questions?
Did you talk to the owners on the right of ways?
I did. I talked to all the owners, and Mr. Zimmer and I went and spoke to one of the owners today. And we think we have a plan to have the owners collectively grant deeds of their rights of way to the city so that the right of way is a public easement, not a private easement.
Right. Thank you.
The only other question, and I don't know, Eric, you might know, 30-foot wide, is that reasonable for a street going back and forth there?
Yes. Yeah, it's we've got some as low as 26 feet, but we went a little bit wider on this one. This community
The road out there is actually 60 feet as it exists, but it doesn't need to be paved, so that's good.
Any more questions? Okay, city manager report.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, just back up. I'd like to walk through some of our updates from last week's report that I sent out. First thing, as we think about the 180-day report, we identified 3 key things: staffing, budget, and training. There's 5 key positions reporting to the city manager that are open, critical to fill. We're going to address a little bit more of form in our information discussion, but what I really wanted to talk about in the city manager report is, with these positions still vacant, obviously our work progress slows down a little bit. There are a lot of questions, field work that the department head, like for example, the director of public utilities, provides advice and guidance to the team in the field. So we're certainly working through this piece very diligently. That had interviews across multiple positions, and like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the information discussion section. From a candidate pool perspective, really the public works and police chief are the 2 roles that we have more pool of candidates than the utilities, finance director, and building inspector. The other thing critical in our staffing right now are wastewater and water technician position openings. We've got 3 on the water side. We do have 1 wastewater position we would like to transfer to another department as well. Certainly licensing there is a critical concern for the city. We did have a wonderful applicant today who actually has a water A license that we interviewed, second interview today. So that's nice, and we're working on how to help facilitate that person. Any questions on staffing?
Yeah, I can see the thing on the finance director.
Yeah, so we've got finance director and director of utilities as well.
Okay.
That are part of that 5 positions. Budget, obviously, hiring a finance director is critical. As we think about approving the budget for this next fiscal year that occurred at last council meeting, target is, what I had outlined in the 180-day plan, is to look at going through the amendment process. One of the techniques I used in the past was sending out surveys to all of our elected officials and ensuring that we're capturing your expectations relative to the budget. So I will send those out before the end of next week. Also working with our staff that is here. We had our staff meeting this morning, having them relook specifically at the capital side of the requests that went in the budget. We know we've got some equipment needs that I want to make sure we address, and then also material needs. And we'll address that through this amendment process. One of the other things I'd like to do is looking at our budget to spend on the streets material. There's still $335,000 in available dollars to spend in this fiscal year, so I would like to encumber $150,000 of that for materials that we can then use in this next paving season. So that's something that we would like to do. Questions? So,
And that material's within the budget.
materials within the budget this year.
Okay, so you don't need council action to do anything. Thanks.
But just wanted to make everybody aware. And just kind of taking a step back too, this city manager report will be posted online tomorrow, so folks can go back and reflect on it. Training, this was the other key piece that we talked about, really formulating our leadership training plan, having that plan developed to present to council by October 1st. And then we really want to start that actual training before the end of October. One of the things that we certainly see here is supervisor and management training on how to effectively work with employees is absolutely critical. Ideally, we have all of our department heads hired by the beginning of the class. If that doesn't happen, certainly before the second session, but really envisioning a 10 to 12 part series to help walk through a lot of different skills base for our leadership team. Right now, we've been meeting with our department heads and supervisors bi-weekly. Very productive discussion this morning in our roundtable relative to some of their needs, and certainly this being one. The other piece that was predominant in our 180-day plan was creating prioritization lists for each department. Stepping back to not having department heads, some of the prioritization is going to formulate over the remainder of this month and in October. Certainly, there are key themes that we see pulling out. Capital needs, equipment. So think about a couple years ago, we had a large mower that was approved in the budget in 2017 that never got purchased. And so the backup mower that's been out at the airport is down. Needing to be repaired. We've got good rainfall coming, so we're falling behind on larger mowing. Part of our goals this next year will be to do a little bit more right-of-way mowing through downtown in those areas. So, that's an example of a capital need. We've also got a backhoe in our water department that is limping along. And we're really at that point where we need to purchase another full backhoe and have this one that's limping along as a good backup. And so we're seeing that across some of our key departments. And then, of course, staffing. Those folks that have openings. Staffing is something that they're reflecting back to me on. Wanted to talk about TCEQ sewer update. One of the things that Jess Washington over in our wastewater department, Old City Hall, talked with her last week about, let's really look at what TCEQ is telling us. What orders do we have out there? What are some of the findings? What are some of the things that they're asking? So she's built a spreadsheet, and I just captured the highlights in those bullet points. But these are the items that Jess and the team and the new director of utilities, myself, are really zeroed in. The ones that start at the top, the 2014-0509, 2018, those are orders that come from TCEQ that have deliverables on. 2017, they came out, did an assessment, had some summary findings. But we're really getting very focused on making sure we're walking through all of these and responding back to TCEQ. We're also going to have our wastewater permit that will be up for renewal this next year. So we'll have to walk through that. And then the materials that will, the bar screen, the belt press, those have been ordered along with labor to install those. The aerator, we're still trying to get a final number from Mr. Skinner on that. That's going to run us about $95,000, but we've got 2 other back-end quotes as well, and we should get that ordered. Mike and I are really working to get that thing ordered this week. And so what I've shown is kind of a little picture representation. The left picture is of our clarifiers, our 2 clarifiers out there, and the right picture is up where our racetrack is, where the aerator. So, and as always, if someone's interested in taking a tour of a wastewater plant, we'd be happy to do that. So I would just say wear boots and jeans.
So last February, I think, former city manager made a trip to Austin to resolve a whole number of issues. This list up here, were they not worked as part of that, or what have you been able to determine what went on?
Yeah, so the biggest 2 things that we look at are the orders from TCEQ. So the top 2 are specific orders. They'll usually have they'll always have 1 or multiple items that have to be correct. And then you basically deliver your responses and your correction notices. Those 2 are still open, so we still have work to finish on them, and we're still tracking them. There are then other summary findings that they come out and do a spot inspection on your facility. They might have some summary findings, ask you to address them before they take it to an order, an actual order. And so sequentially down the list.
So we council approved like $39,000 or $40,000 to pay the TCEQ. Were any of those associated with these open items, or do you know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer. I'll be glad to go back and get which orders the $39,000 went against.
That'd be helpful. Just because we thought we got all that in reserve, we're on track, and we're done, and moving forward. What this says is we've got lots of work yet to do.
Yeah. One of the things that Jess and I talked about is making sure we have a good working list. We use we use Google Docs, so we have the ability to share that amongst our team members, so that we have absolute visibility on what we're doing against each one of them.
Okay, thanks.
What was the amount?
$39,000 is what we paid, I think, in February, March.
Streets, once again, we have vacancy there with our Public Works Director. Eddie has been, Eddie Molinar, been on our street team for over 30 years, very talented. He and I have really talked about, what's worked in the past, where do we need to go moving forward to get the most out of our paving. And I can honestly say in the last couple of weeks, probably the number one thing that people in the community have reflected to me has been, hey, we need more paving. And that's been a theme since 2013 as well. In the short term, Eddie and team have about 10 to 12 streets, blocks queued up to pave this year, provided the rain slows down. But next year, we're really looking at going to a three-pronged approach where we, number one, do the full rebuilds with an outside vendor. We do the seal coat with our city team. And then we also work the alleys in the downtown area with our city team. Because we know, and I'm sure some of you hear from folks about the alleys in downtown. So we certainly want to clean those up. And then work on some beautification in the downtown area so that as we have more tourists coming in, we're addressing that. Eddie is going to go to TML this year. And so he'll be out there with a group of us and really do quite a bit of research on different tools, materials, ways that other cities are effectively using their budget and maximizing what they get done. As I said, we've got 10 to 12 blocks queued up to pave this fall. Also in the midst of analyzing KSA research that was put together. Most importantly, looking at priority lists on our streets as we think about, especially the rebuild of streets. We want to make sure we pick out 25 to 35 that are in the highest need of being fully rebuilt. And then, of course, working diligently to identify higher public works.
So we have queued up for October 15th, a workshop. Is that going to meet the schedule you're looking for? To get feedback from us?
Yes, yeah, that will. Because we're really looking at 2020.
Okay.
So I really want us to get, by the end of the year, have this stuff really queued up so that we can negotiate well on our pricing for the gravel and all of our other materials. The parks, wow, what a great group, a lot of enthusiasm. They are, the chair of the board, Kirsten Moody, called me the other day and said, hey, we're ready to start helping you put in grant applications to, offset some of the costs on these two projects. So really a lot of energy and enthusiasm. One of the things I like that they're doing too is they're moving their Parks Board meetings around to all the different parks to get heightened visibility out of it. I did ask her to go ahead and really work back with the Parks Board on a prioritization list. That way, as we think through the budget amendment and any existing capital that's already been allocated, most of the parks grants are a 50-50 match. So if we've got 75,000 in there, we could go after 150,000 in grant monies. So that's really what she's leading that side of the team on. The grants do go through the city of Alpine, so we are the application, but our parks board supports. Once again, mowing equipment's a priority, and we'll talk about that. Questions? Human resource update. Our human resource coordinator resigned this past week. I know council received that letter. A couple key things, department head hiring. And we'll get into that in our information discussion section. The department heads are looked at from the city manager. We vet them and then present that to council for advice and consent. One of the other items that was brought up was nepotism laws. Included the hot link here, so folks can go out to the state law. Certainly Rod and I have talked about nepotism. There's also an AG opinion out there. And I'll let Rod address that here in a second. I want to say one thing in a small town. My previous stint as city manager, my son served as a lifeguard for 2 years. We were desperate for lifeguards. He filled shifts, kept the pool open. I know that was something that pained the city this year, is that pool had to close because you didn't have lifeguards. 2 of the 4 years I served as city manager, one of my direct reports, their parent was a city councilor, town council. And generally speaking, if you look at our school board trustees, Alpine Independent School District, there are a lot of school board trustees that have family members that work in the school district. Ultimately, we look over at our city attorney, or school district would look at their district attorney to identify and walk through any of these items. Rod, I don't know if you want to add anything?
Well, it's just that in Alpine, where you have a city manager who's in charge of hiring, you don't necessarily have an issue regarding hiring somebody that might be related to a council member. The way to guard against that is to make sure the hiring process is done fairly and transparently, that person's qualifications are there, and that there's hadn't been any kind of interference with administration. So it's one of those things that occasionally comes up in a small town, but you handle it with great scrutiny and care to make sure that all the both the state law and Alpine ordinances are followed.
The staffing chart that I had day one had a little over 100 positions on it. When I left here a couple years ago, there were on or around 70 positions. And so trying to really narrow through what, as we go through these budget amendments, what as a city can we afford to spend? We know that there's got to be that balance between human capital and then materials and things that we have to deliver. There are 11 positions right now that I've asked that we not fill until the budget amendments are presented to council, and we really ensure that there's funding on those positions. None of those are department heads. We do need the department heads. And our second highest need right now is water technicians. We've got three openings. Questions?
Yes, Rod. The resignation letter by Miss or Mrs. Upchurch was rather intriguing. It did bring up a lot of interesting allegations, which personally I feel they should be looked into. And in fairness of truth and honesty, I say kudos to her for bringing it forth, making us aware of it. My question to you is, having received that letter, what is your true, deep, personal perspective on what you said? On what you stated in there?
As far as her.
With respect to possibly interviewing prospective employees without advertising the positions, bidding against others that might also be as qualified. Doing that, I mean, that's EO down the pipeline. And so the same to fairness and equality. And I don't think that's very fair to the other employees and on staff or others out there that may be interested in wanting to apply.
So the one person in particular, Megan Antrim.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
The one person in particular was Megan Antrim, who was identified in the letter. When I interviewed with council last week, I expressly presented my intention to try to go hire her and recruit her back as finance director. I do know when she submitted her resignation this summer, that council voted to not accept her resignation. So those were all indicators to me that council enjoyed having her on the staff. As we talked about it through my interview process, I certainly didn't get any reflections back that, either at the meeting or following up, that there were reservations relative to Ms. Antrim. I've also had numerous people in the community, as well as other employees, that have approached me about having Megan come back as a full-time employee. I think Mr. Waters in the Big Bend Gazette did quite a bit of research on some of her successes in the past, and I think those are very important from a city perspective. There were a couple other applicants, and certainly as you looked through those applicants, I felt that Megan was the strongest qualified to hit the ground running. That doesn't mean that it doesn't go up to advice and consent of council. And so when that gets presented at the next council meeting, or certainly ahead of time, council can always come to me with specific reservations relative to her. Relative to nepotism, as I shared earlier, we reached out to the city attorney, and that's why we have a city attorney in place, to look through the law and look through AG Opinion 0595 is almost a direct correlation. It's in the city of Farr, Texas, where you had a elected official and one of their family members applying for a role. And so the AG offered an opinion on it. Those are things that we look back at. We also look at the community as a whole. As I shared earlier, we've had numerous points in time as a city where we've had people that are of family member status working within the city. We also look at our other governing entities in town, so the Independent School District, the county, Saul Ross, and what their behavior is. So when I think about things, that's what I think about is how do you pull in your resources to ask those questions and give your opinion about them.
I stand to be corrected when we deal with a councilman and yourselves. But when in the case of Ms. Atrium, I thought it was the decision of the council that should be worked out between her and her supervisor as far as the resignation. I don't recall if we ever voted not to accept the resignation. We voted that it was up for her and her supervisor to come to some conclusion of that particular issue.
So council voted 5-0 to recommend she stay, but we also recognize that it was the city manager's decision ultimately to make that decision. We council took a formal vote past 5-0.
I just can't remember, I'm
Yeah, well,
sorry.
it's documented in minutes.
Now, are we gonna be allowed to, interview the other two candidates?
Mayor, the way the council's works on the advice and consent on hiring department heads is generally they're going to be presented to y'all after the city manager makes a recommendation. It's not really up to the council to interview everybody and then say, we like this person, because that's going beyond the scope of the city charter. The city charter is for the city manager to choose, but the department heads aren't hired by him. They're hired by him with the advice and consent of the council. So the process that I've used in other cities and that I think is normal in cities that outlined is that he would come to you with somebody, probably bring that person in, let y'all talk to that person, explain to you why he chose this person and what the qualifications are, and let y'all ask that person questions. Also, we'll talk about other applicants, but as far as the interview process, that's his. Saying thumbs up or thumbs down, that's y'all.
I understand that, because in the past, I know we've had some that we have interviewed several for that position.
Not since I've been on council.
And that's why I was asking about that.
No, as you recall, Jessica brought in 4 candidates. She asked us to interview 2. The other 2, she brought in the recommendation, and we interviewed those individuals. Since I've been on council, we've interviewed 1. And in many cases, not even interviewed. We've had discussion with the city manager and given advice and consent consistent with the charter. I know you've sat in on interviews. We've not
Well, I only
allowed
sat
to do
on
that.
one, and
That's fair, but
Yeah.
we, the rest of the council has not.
So, I mean, and the council would also have the ability, if you had reservations about the choice of the city manager, to say, bring somebody else in, let's talk to them. But it's really not up to the council to interview somebody and recommend somebody, because that's going beyond the scope of the council manager kind of form of government.
I understand what you said, and that is supposed to be the role of the city manager. He or she is the one that goes out, sends out a vacancy announcement. You get your applicant pool in, you vet the applicant pool, you pick the 4 or 5 most qualified, and then the city manager can then pick whoever he or she feels is the most qualified for the position, and then brings to us the name of the individual that he or she recommends.
That's correct.
And in reality, as councilors, because that's basically where we are, is to counsel the city managers to say, I think that's a good choice, or maybe one might want to consider. But the final choice is the city managers, right?
Final choice of city managers, but the final approval is the city council. The city council has the ability to approve or disapprove the hiring of the department head.
But in most cases, the city council will go whatever recommendation the city manager.
That's correct, but in the process of seeking y'all's advice and consent, y'all have the ability to ask them questions, to ask them to bring the person in, to, sort of grill it about why he chose that person. And hopefully he would have good reasons for doing so, be able to compare that person to other applicants. To y'all, in y'all's role as the body that advises and consents on department heads.
Questions? Thank you.
post your city manager's report in the city manager's blog? I'm just trying to figure out
Yes.
where it's going to go.
Yes.
Okay.
They will be posted there. Cynthia and I went through today, there were some old postings in there, they got removed. And then I sent her the 180-day report or plan, so.
It's already out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's out there right now. Because I remember the last, where's Eric's plan? And then put the report out there.
Yeah, it was on 30 minutes after he sent it. Literally 30 minutes after he sent it.
Excellent, excellent.
Ready to move on? City staff updates, none? Okay, public hearings. City manager.
Yes, we have a public hearing to obtain citizen views and comments on ordinance 2019-01-01, an ordinance of the city of Alpine, Texas, expressing the voting role of the council and mayor in the vote to hire or terminate a city manager, repeal or severability, effective date, and notice of.
Any comments?
Just a public hearing, so everybody can.
Yes, sir.
Dave Lambert, Ward 5. I think you should vote in favor of allowing the mayor to vote.
What's that again?
They should allow you to vote as the mayor. To hire or terminate a city manager. You have in the past. I think it's interpretation of the current city attorney, what his interpretation of the law is. Other cities allow it. I think Alpine should be any different.
And that's where, when we got into that controversy.
So Mayor,
Yes, sir.
point of order.
Yes, sir.
Public hearing,
Yeah,
so listen,
that's right.
you're not allowed to comment, you can have that debate later
Stand
on.
corrected. Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm Richard Young from Ward 1, and I think that this ordinance perfectly codifies what is already in the charter and in the prior ordinance, which correctly says, particularly since the charter provision governs, that the mayor's ability to vote is limited to a tie, basically. And that's what this ordinance makes clear, and it clears up also the matter of how many people have to be there for the forum, which is a great addition. So I would hope that the council would adopt this.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else? Okay. And let's move on then. Consent agenda, city manager.
And you can read the notice to the public.
I don't have,
I'll read it.
The following items are of routine and administrative nature. The council has been furnished with background and support material on each item and/or it has been discussed in a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by a council member, in which event the item or items will immediately be withdrawn for individual consideration in its normal sequence after the items not requiring separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote. There is only one item, A, approval of minutes from city council meeting on September 3rd, 2019.
okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I move that we pull the one item from the consent agenda. I believe there's an error in it that can be quickly covered as administrative error, but not being, so therefore that's the motion that I make.
Okay, so you pulled the one item.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a second? Any discussion on it? Okay, all those in favor? Raised by hand, opposed last time. Okay. Motion carries. And let's go to item 8, information or discussion items. And we'll start with Margaret Moore.
Yes, sir.
The airport board appreciates the chance to give our report,
So the podium, sir.
and Dr. Knighton's going to give our report.
Thank you, Morris. I appreciate the opportunity.
You got an introduction.
And the introduction. I've got a PowerPoint. And
Hurts.
Thanks.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Oh, good.
Flags are even flying.
My goodness. Rick, does that look familiar? Mr. Mayor, reflecting what Chair said, thank you very much for the opportunity. And parenthetically, Mr. Zimmer, we had a crew coming up our street, Susan and I saw, filling potholes. First time I saw a roller coming through and tamping it down, so thank you very much. Okay, let's go on with what we're supposed to be doing. This is our fourth quarterly report. Okay, come on now. There it is. These are the members. James Morris is here as well. Let me read that. The mission is defined by city ordinance, is to advise the city council on all matters for the Alpine Casparis Municipal Airport. So that's what we're trying to do, fulfill our mission. We'll talk specifically about capital improvement projects. This past fiscal year, taxiway reconstruction went very well. The total cost was $3 million. The city of Alpine, their part, which they paid $300,000, it was completed July 2019, and the final contract amount was less. The actual amount was less than was estimated. So, I think in your report that you have in front of you, there may be a refund that's available to the city to that. Coming up in next year, we have two projects we are looking at that have been approved. Runway lighting project. This is not doing the project itself, but getting the engineering design done, and that's a $70,000 engineering design cost. The city of Alpine's portion is $7,000. We expect to get that completed this coming fiscal year. Then runway 0119 rehabilitation. Total cost of that is $300,000. 10% of that, once again, the city's responsibility $30,000. We also expect that to complete in 2019-2020. Let me re-emphasize that in the previous one, the lighting project, it's not the project itself that's being completed, but the engineering design that's being completed. So the total for this coming fiscal year is $37,000. In the following fiscal year, you'll be happy to know there are no capital projects. Or at least Mr. Zimmer will be happy with that. And then in 21-22, we do have a significant cost coming up. Actually completing the runway lighting project, constructing it, is a $900,000 project. The city of Alpine's 10% portion is $90,000. I would expect to have that actually completed in that fiscal year. So where does that money come from? And that's something that the last couple of times I've been out here, I've tried to make the point that fiscal accountability is what this airport board is all about. We're working hard on doing that. 3 fiscal years, from 2018 through 22, we have a total of 7,000, 30,000, 90,000. The 90,000 which is estimated gives us a total of 127,000 estimated. So this year, in the fiscal year, the airport operated within its budget and has a positive cash position in terms of what we've been able to elicit from the information we've received from the city, at least $30,000. In the coming fiscal year, the budget is projecting a surplus of $45,000, and we carry that estimated surplus over into the following fiscal year of also $45,000. This, as you already know, these are primary source of income in the airport budget, other than its routine operations, is fuel sales. And that's where these surpluses are coming from. So we have a total three-year surplus of $120,000. So it's easy to look at, well, we have an obligation, 3 year, $127,000, that's estimated. The surplus that's estimated is $120,000. We're running pretty close on some significant projects, and as we move through these next 3 years, we can certainly start getting this in much better focus and make it clearer. I will say parenthetically, the quality of this tonight, maybe I shouldn't do it parenthetically, maybe this should be in bold, and that is that the quality of these recommendations that we bring to the council are almost always in financial terms. And the quality of that recommendation depends entirely upon the quality of the financial information we're getting from the city, its timeliness and its accuracy. And so that's something that I hope we have an opportunity to talk more with Mr. Zimmer about. There's just some glitches that we need to clear up to make sure that what we bring to you as a council has both credibility behind it and also has our thoughtful approach to how to deal with it. So that's an emphasis I'd like to make. So our recommendation to the city council is to carry over these annual surpluses over the next 3 years in the airport budget to these following fiscal years, so that we can stand up here in future years and say, we got the funds to meet these future obligations. That's our intent. And that has been our intent. That's our focus. So thank you. We got airplanes kind of sitting on new, newly sealed runways. And now questions. Yes, sir.
So we seem to have developed a rather large parking lot out there. And so my first question, I have two. The first question is the airport board looking at whether or not we ought to charge people for kind of moving in out there and parking cars? In fact, there are now weeds growing around some of those vehicles.
Actually, we've had and I'm going to, fortunately, we have the chair here, a member that knows more about this, a lot more than I do. But let me make this statement. We have been discussing the possibility of putting in, and we've actually had proposals to put in a parking facility, a covered parking facility, which would be charged, for which those that are parking would be charged. And that then would allow us to have some stronger management opportunity here. So that's in conversation, and since you asked the question, I have no doubt that conversation will be held much more deeply tomorrow at our airport board meeting. And I'm saying airport board meeting even though our name is Alpine Advisory Committee. Since it's Alpine Advisory Committee, we'll have some comments about sewers. Margaret, do we need to say anything else about parking out there?
Sounds like we're going to go work it.
This is, I would say it's in progress, and if it's a concern, then we'll get after this with even more alacrity than previously.
Second question, do you have any sense about where Jet A fuel sales are going? Up, down, flat?
Now, this is third hand, and we've got better experts than I sitting here, but the last month was a significant increase. That's a good one. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We'll have to monitor it, and that, of course, will have a lot to do with what these estimated surpluses look like. Yes.
Thanks, Bob.
Yes, sir.
I do have one question. And I'm not sure, maybe you guys presented this already, but trying to piece together, but you have a developed concept plan for the airport, let's say 20, 25 years, and to service it, it will provide the income is going to draw, business-wise. What will there be available as far as emergencies? You know, we're getting a lot of need for runways for fire equipment and the sale of fuel. But what do you foresee the airport in 25 years and the benefit to Alpine?
Well, I think what I would say here, first of all, you're talking about a strategic plan is what you're talking about. And, you know, all I have to do is pull up, I hit the wrong button, but I'll pull it up again, the size of this airplane, or these airplanes. When someone steps off that airplane, they're just been running Alpine. And so it's in our interest to make sure that the facilities will support these kinds of, and that we also provide the service necessary so they feel welcome when they get here. And that's an important part of the training process of the Alpine service folks. That they look at these pilots as they're coming in as customers that they need to please. That's an important element. The strategic plan, we've had discussions about whether that should be the thing that happens over the next day or so, next year or so. Why isn't that in here? Shouldn't we be putting a strategic plan in place? The conversations we've had with the Texas folks that fund these kinds of projects, that are putting up to 90%, said, yes, it's important. These other things are more important at this point for Alpine. So we do have a strategic plan. It's out of date. We are talking about when we're going to put it in place. We're following the recommendations, obviously, of people that give us 90% of the money on when we do it. Did I answer your question at all?
Yes and no.
Yes and no, I know. Well, yes. No,
I'm just trying to get, what's your vision for
Well, a lot of it
25 years
has
for
to do with what the council itself, how it treats the airport in terms of whether it makes it a more and more attractive place for business to come into and then come into the city. And that has to do with how the city itself, not just you all, but everybody that's involved in developing business, development activity, development of tourism, it's all one piece. I've got very good friends of mine who fly in here to hunt. Are we supporting that? All of that is that something we want to support? These are questions that are strategic decisions for the city of Alpine. It's our job to try to find ways that the airport's going to support those strategic goals of the city. So in some sense, I'm turning it back to you. What do you see as the most important? What do you see as the most important strategic priority for the city over the next 25 years? Because that can help guide us in terms of what we might be focusing on as we start thinking about a strategic plan.
Well, think about increased services, commercial, bringing in visitation to Alpine, or from Alpine and somewhere else. The services we've got now are, FedEx and all the other carriers that bring goods into Alpine and out. In case of emergencies, fire or rescue, the airport is definitely a plus, especially for our residents.
Well, with the hospital and with Border Patrol and all that, those are all services.
Right. So what I'd like to see is the concept of where the airport can expand to bring in, yes, services and goods and that will help the city of Alpine and all of the city, not just in certain wards. And then the aesthetics of planning, what will a plan be like for an airport in Alpine in 25 years?
Really nice terminal.
Alpine's had a plan in the past for a terminal building and nice parking in that area in the front.
We still have a strategic plan. It is out of date. It has been updated, but we do that. It's good looking terminal.
If I may, I think at 1 year, and I don't know, Isabella, you might know, but there was actual commercial flights coming out of here. And we weren't able to support them because our citizens were not using the resource to fly out from Alpine. So that never was able to work itself out.
Del Rio has commercial flights.
They do.
There are charter flights available. If folks want to charter a flight, that is an option.
The challenge you run into is the business model for putting my operators. That's the FAA requirements they have to go through certification, at least that's right. There are Part 135 operators that operate here in Alpine, provide charter service, but for regular commercial service, they can't make a go of it, despite the fact there's been 2 or 3, since I've been on council, will actually look at business models. So getting commercial service out here, no one can make that business model.
I'd like to close with an operational statement, just underlining, which is in there, since it's the first time I've seen the city that having accurate and timely financial information is probably the biggest issue that we're dealing with in terms of bringing to the council recommendations that we feel can be considered credible.
Councilman had a visit, or 2 visitors, and they were inquiring about building a hangar out there. And they needed information. I said, well, the only place you can go is the airport. Talking to Isabel, says you do have brochures for that, but they're not on the website.
So we have construction packets,
Mhm.
and they're available if somebody walks in and asks the city secretary, or if somebody walks in at the airport, that they have them. And hopefully, we'll be able to put those packets online.
We can have
Yeah.
that discussion.
Yeah, because I mean, it was late in the evening when I ran into it, and we were talking about it, and they were flying out in the following morning, so. So the only thing you do is run by the airport and pick up, some info from there, but Isabel says there's a packet there, just a matter of putting it online.
Well, it's a city IT deal, function, that's the question for take place.
So Ron, if I may, you made a comment that inferred that the airport was supposed to certain awards. Is that what you intended to say?
Oh, there's certain wards where the commerce district is. A lot of people come in and the business that comes in is basically to bring in goods and services to downtown.
Well, there are, if you go talk to UPS, I would dare say that there are probably 35 to 40 direct jobs in Alpine that the airport supports, and they live in all wards, and they deliver packages to all wards.
Let's increase that.
Well, that's great. If someone's got a business plan, go do it, yes. But it has actually grown since I've been here, and it's nice to see there's another quad hangar being built up around the Port Concrete.
And there may be other opportunities out there we haven't even thought about.
Yep, someone's just got to go work the business model.
That's right.
Oh, I love it. I get my packages.
Nobody knows about that.
Changed, it has changed.
Report in your packets, as the last several, is a compilation of the monthly reports that I submit to the city manager with my monthly invoice. And so this is 3 months worth of activity from July to September. One thing I did not have time to complete before the packet deadline, and this is not critical information, but it begins to answer a question that Councilman Stevens had on our last report, which was the source of the room count.
Excellent, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, this is from what's called the Texas Hotel Performance Fact Book that the Texas Hotel Lodging Association provides to me on request. The question I don't have an answer for is, why these hotels? And, why? And so I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. But this tells you that the change for the folks who don't have the pieces of paper in front of them. In 2016, it reported 478 rooms in Alpine. In 2017, 488. In 2018, 580. And then as of the end of second quarter of 2019, 586 rooms. And the source of those numbers, it's itemized by hotel. And it's the majority, but not all, of the hotels that actually function in Alpine. So why they're counting these hotels? Maybe these are the ones who are reporting to the entity that they're actually getting data from, because what they're showing is the occupancy rate and revenue. So perhaps this is just the sample that we're relying on to get the occupancy numbers that I'm presenting to you. But the difference was in 2017, it went up 10 when they counted 10 Airbnb rooms. In 2018, there were 7 additional Airbnb rooms. Terlingua Ranch, which for basically zip code purposes is classified as an Alpine hotel, they went up from 8 to 32 rooms. And Antelope Lodge in that year went up from 7 to 28 rooms. And Bienvenido Hotels showed up for the first time in those numbers at 40 rooms in 2018. And then between 2018 and 2019, we added an additional, an additional 6 Airbnb rooms. So that's where those numbers are coming from. But I'm seeing as I look at that, that is not actually a legitimate count of Alpine's rooms. It's just the rooms they used to get those occupancy numbers. So that's some more work to do to get you a good count.
So you believe this number is low?
Yes.
Any guesstimate by
Not yet. But in a quarter, I'll come back and I'll give you a better estimate.
Fair enough.
That's one thing I actually want to say is that I personally and professionally am getting a lot of value out of this particular cycle, because about once every 3 months, it's a good opportunity for me to set down the day-to-day and look at that thing I put in red when I finished my report last quarter to push that reporting to the next step. And so we'll do that.
Chris,
Yes.
I had a local Airbnb operator who pays her hotel taxes complain to me that she sees that there's about 20 Airbnb operators in Alpine that pay hotel taxes. And she notes about 60 Airbnbs in Alpine advertising that they have rooms for rent. So what steps are you taking to make sure that all Airbnbs in Alpine are having hot taxes collected?
That is something I will address in just a moment, if that's all right.
Oh, I didn't mean to jump ahead of it.
No, it's obviously a relevant question because I was planning to speak on it. Besides just the room count and a general occupancy percentage, which is what that fact book will give us, and I would say that's a rough estimate of that occupancy because it's not, the source of hotel tax revenue that I've been working from for the last 8 years that I've been working for the city and promoting tourism has been from the state controller. And it's only been in the last couple of months that I've actually gotten the city's revenue reports. That's something that's been on Megan's desk, and for whatever reason, the lines never connected. And so at this point, I'm actually looking at what, not just what the state brought in, but what the city brought in. So where I see the next step on my reporting, just to understand for my own purposes what's happening in the hotel industry, but also to report to you, is to really do an overlay where I get good numbers from the state controller, and I had spoken to Eric about there's a third-party website with like an $8 a month subscription where we can get more granular data from the controller without having to do a freedom of information request for every single thing. So I would like to do that, and then run some more local reports and just really look quarter to quarter what's the financial hotel activity that the state is seeing versus what's actually getting paid into Alpine. Because the short-term rental, Airbnb for short, that market is it's a conundrum for tax collecting entities all over the country right now. But the approach that makes sense to me is, well, one, to just for the hotels that are reporting that we have names for, and so some of the Airbnbs are already submitting, so we just crunch those numbers and make sure that our hotels are actually remitting to the city the amount that they're reporting to the state in terms of the revenue they collected. Then to start actually building, there's a couple of services online that scrape those HomeAway and Airbnb databases, and we can get some information as to, and there's more than 60, Rod, actually, short-term rentals in Alpine, and I seen a count of maybe 11 or 12 that are actually submitting returns to, tax returns to the city. And so this will be a long process, but what I recommend is that we start building the mailing list and that we actually put together a quarterly mail out. And that way that folks, most of the Airbnb operators in Alpine do not realize that they're not paying the city tax. I had some emails with one business owner recently saying, well, why aren't I on the website? And we had this conversation because Airbnb automatically collects the state's piece of the tax. And so intuitively, when somebody starts a business and they start running on that website, well, the tax is built in. And they have to be told that there's a whole other 7% that's not happening automatically. And so that's on us to slowly figure out who are the folks doing the business, and then in a helpful and friendly way, get them the information they need to start collecting.
We have some tools to pay taxes.
We do, yeah, and that's before we even get to that, you know, because my first priority would be to make the invitation.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
And that's exactly what Chris and I talked about, is for some of these folks, you know, they're really excited about venturing into the Airbnb world. And so the first step is to approach them and show the requirements from the hotel occupancy tax, give them the opportunity to correct and do it the right way. If they choose not to, then we can go back and
then we confer with the city attorney on the most effective approaches to take that next step. Yeah, for sure. So do you have any other questions about that tax piece and the reporting? Yes.
So the only question I have, Chris, and your report was very helpful, thank you. Revenue is up, but hotel occupancy tax collections is down.
Yeah, and I have I'm building that spreadsheet so I can really look year to year and find out, and I'm 2/3 of the way through that piece, okay, where I'm really looking at who paid what locally. Yeah. Then I need to get into the state numbers and see, was the revenue really down, or are we just seeing underpayment to the city, or so.
Yeah, because it says total revenue last year or for this period was $12.4 million. This year it's $12.9 million, but the revenue is $70,000 less coming to the city.
One of the things, well, and that almost $13 million only includes, if I can find my room count, it only includes 23 Airbnb rooms. So my first thought was, well, there's a lot of growth and momentum going on within the short-term rental market. A lot of people, and I would not be at all surprised if our hotels are seeing softening because there's such a, there's a lot of product out there in people's homes. But that number is not reflected there. So I really want to look at the state's numbers and see hotel to hotel, what are we looking at year to year?
Okay.
Let's see. My main priority at this moment is closing out the fiscal year, and so the state began requesting reports from the city starting 2 or 3 years ago, and they've become more stringent year after year. And last year, I believe, was the first year that the state requested a report of hot expenses from the city by category, and then gave us back a finding that we had not met our statutory requirement of 50% of our collections being spent on advertising. So my priority at this moment, and I've been sharing some numbers with Eric and some projections, is to make absolutely sure that we meet that requirement in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, we're on track. I've been looking at all the different grant awards and seeing what all has everyone spent. I've got 3. We have 3 that are still open: the Alpine Cowboys, the Alpine Downtown Association, and Big Bend Arts Council that had some late, their things ended somewhat later. So I have all the reimbursement requests from the Cowboys I'll be reviewing in the morning, and the other 2 should be coming in the next couple of days. And so once I get that picture of, did they spend all their money or did they not, and then we'll make some last minute projects and make sure we hit that number. So I'm working on that. And there are three other quick things I'll mention before I show you a few pictures. One, Ellen Melvin, at the tourism coordinator at the Visitor Center, and Wendy Little, the director of the Texas Mountain Trail region, and I planned and held an event planning session at the Holland Hotel at the end of August, where I invited every event organizer that I could think of, and I missed some, of course, to come to a meeting, and Wendy invited more region-wide folks to participate, to come to the Holland. We had, for the next 12 months, we had some big calendars out on easels and had everybody put down their event dates for the next year. So at the moment, I have, in my position and distributed to everybody who participated, a spreadsheet with all of those dates. So when folks are trying to start a new event or thinking, when do I want to do, my party or my concert or what have you, we have information we can share that's a little more substantial. And so my intention is to have one of these every 6 months so that we can, and to build up the more regional participation. We had a lot of folks from Alpine, not so many from Marfa. Fort Davis Chamber came. So that's something that I'm real pleased with how it went. My hope is to, if I can find a way to import into Google Calendars, have something that's in a calendar format, not just an Excel spreadsheet, that folks can add to and refer to as they're making their plans. So that went really well. Something coming up, I'm also working with Wendy at Texas Mountain Trail Region and the Texas Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus for the TACVB to come out to Alpine, invite all their membership to have a Heritage Tourism Symposium in late April 23rd to 26th. We've talked to Quarter Circle 7 about hosting it. TACVB will have what they have called a Destination Marketing Principles training, which will be a whole day hopefully in the pavilion out by Twin Sisters in the back of Quarter Circle 7. And over the following 2 days, Wendy and I will take all those attendees on a bus tour. I'll take them on a walking tour of downtown Alpine and of the Museum of the Big Bend, and then we'll take them on a bus tour to Fort Davis, to the observatory, back to Alpine for a reception the next day to the National Park, on the River Road to Fort Wheaton and up to Marfa. And so we're hoping that a good number of tourism professionals from around the state will come, and pretty exciting for me. And TACVB seems really, really excited about it. They've never done anything like this. They do trainings and stuff all the time, so they're breaking ground on this one. And lastly, before I show you a few pictures, the historical sign to be installed at Murphy Street. I've been working with Center for Big Bend Studies. David Keller over there did an excellent write-up on the history of Murphy Street. We've sourced some good photography, so that project is well underway. And I'm still hoping to have it ready to unveil for the Center for Big Bend Studies conference in November. So that's on track. And then it will show a few pictures. This is the top of our second e-newsletter that we sent out. This was about Viva Big Bend, so we did a little animated GIF from some video that Chris Sibley shot of folks dancing. I don't have a sign-up form on our website yet, but we're collecting emails through Texas Monthly, through tourtexas.com, and so we're adding to the mailing list pretty frequently. Let's see, I also have some numbers about the distribution of these. The average click-through rate for email newsletters in the industry is 3%, and we're looking at, for this one, we had 9.72% click-through rate. The one before that, we had 17% almost.
Wow.
And we have an open rate, 15% is considered good, and we had an open rate of 32% on this one and 39% on the previous, which was the inaugural one. We just sent out another newsletter in September. We're going to do it roughly monthly. I don't have numbers for September.
Chris, on your
Yes.
location demographics, is it mostly here or outside of Alpine that people are getting their click-throughs?
I would think, well, I don't know that the only locals on the list right now are city staff.
Okay,
So,
good,
yeah,
good.
because they've all come through those opt-ins from media.
Okay, excellent.
I expect we'll get more locals as we get that sign up on the website as folks come through. This is a couple of pages from Texas Monthly from the November issue. We do a 3rd page square ad 4 times a year, and we time 2 of them with their fall and spring travel guides. And one thing I was really happy with this one because I'm about to show you this magazine too, but I'm going to wave at the screen a little. This little column here, it says Big Bend Country Alpine. That little piece of text that's what we earned from the value added. That's all we could expect. But we sent them so many photos that they used in not just 1, but 4 photos of Alpine, and we wound up with 2 full pages in the magazine for free, basically. And another thing that Eric brought, this is the Southwest Air magazine. We did the same ad here, and there's a similar, we don't get all the photo coverage, they don't have as much space to share, but we have, again, a little editorial and an ad, and that's in all the Southwest Airlines. They estimate 5 million readers per issue, so we did 2 of them last year. I'm proposing to do that again, also to coincide with their travel features, so we get the text in there as well.
I saw that on a flight a couple months ago. I was flying from Albuquerque to Dallas and was just caught off guard by it. And so, anyway, it was interesting as a talking point on the flight how many people around you are familiar with the Big Bend area, and there were multiple people. It was really neat and well laid out in their magazine.
Excellent. And so the last few things I wanted to go quickly through deals with photography. So we see here we get a lot of value out of having good photographs that we can share with media. And so one new resource, these 4 photos were all taken by Bobby Greason, who's a new employee at Sul Ross State University. He's Katie Ray's uncle, if you know Dr. Ray. And he's working with the admissions office at Sul Ross. And so I had a meeting with him, and he has been really helpful. If there's something that he's taken photo and video for the university to promote the university. And so if he can shoot something for the university, he'll share the photos with me at no charge. But I've also contracted with him to do Big Bend Ranch Rodeo at the top right there, and the bottom ones were from Viva Big Bend, and then the top left is from our farmers market. So he's a really great resource. I've been working also with him on doing some high quality and amazingly low cost video production. So I did a promotional video, I haven't distributed it yet, of live music in the Holland Hotel courtyard. And so we'll be putting that on social media and putting some dollars behind that. We are currently taking entries from for the Alpine TX photo contest. I usually get 300 to 400 photos in every year. The cost is the prizes and the judge, so I went up paying $750 total for 350 photos, so it's a pretty good buy. And that one at the desk, that's the top half of that second page, was a contest entry. So that was a good bang for almost no bucks there. So the deadline this year it's always September 30th, and so collecting entries now. The judge this year is Lee Hoy, who he was a travel counselor in Langtree, and then he retired from that job, and I believe he's based in Fort Davis now, but he runs Big Bend birding and photo tours. So most of his photos are really beautiful bird photos, but this is a landscape that he shot. So I asked him if he would be our judge, and he agreed. And lastly, there's that funny looking thing in the vertical shot there is an award that we won. Jessica suggested that I look at the Texas Association of Municipal Information Officers awards to see if there's anything we were doing that might be a match. And so when I read through all the rules, best use of photography seemed like the best bet. And so I sent, the top photo is by Aaron Bates, and the bottom one is by Dan Klepper. Aaron's from Austin. He shoots a lot in Big Bend, and I commissioned a few photos that we used that one largely kind of as our logo. It was the central photo for all of our ads for about 1.5 years, and the Dan Klepper is for Marathon. That bottom one is the one we're using as the central photo for all of our ads right now. And so we didn't win a first prize, we won an honor award for best use of photography. So I thought I'd share that with you. And that's all my pictures, and so I'm happy to take any questions if you have them for any of this. Good job. Very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris,
Yes.
how about houses that families renovate and they use part-time, but they rent out the rest of the time to tourists or whatever? I know of a couple of those. Are you getting any, or is the city getting anything from that?
Some folks do, and most of them are they're listing through Airbnb.
Okay.
But a lot of them, it's very difficult to get contact information from them. One thing that the state, that when the Airbnb collects the state's piece, the state negotiated that with Airbnb.
What if they're not using Airbnb?
Well, they should still be paying, legally, they must pay the tax if anybody stays there. If they take money and somebody stays there for less than 30 days, then legally they need to pay the tax.
Okay.
But what it comes down to is, do we find out about it?
Yeah.
And are they doing it, are they still doing it, and for how long? And can we then communicate to them that they need to be collecting the tax? That's the law. But yeah, everyone is legally required to. And as Rod can itemize, down to putting a lien on a property, the city does. Now, we may need to revise our ordinances to actually bring some of those kind of mechanisms into play. But the state law has quite a few remedies where if the city determines they need to put some weight behind some egregious non-payer, that can happen.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris.